Dr. Claudia Thompson. As I mentioned earlier, she's the chief of the Population Health Branch in the Division of Extramural Research and Training at the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences in the US. The division supports diverse programs in population-based, laboratory-based, and community-engaged research related to environmental exposures and their effects on human health, including an emphasis on how timing of exposure affects health outcome across the lifespan. She is the program director for the Environmental Health Sciences Core Centers Program and co-director of the Human Health Exposure Analysis Resource. She represents NIEHS on a trans-NIH funded household air pollution intervention trial that is conducted in Guatemala, India, Peru, and Rwanda, as well as manages a portfolio of grants related to cook stove research. Dr. Thompson received a bachelor's degree in biology from Bradley University in Illinois and a PhD in biochemistry and nutrition from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So you are welcome, Dr. Claudia Thompson. I will also introduce our second speaker, who has been a longtime friend of ISEE Africa chapter. She is Bonnie JOUBERT. She's a health scientist, administrator, and program official at the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. She oversees research funding related to cardiovascular, respiratory, immune, and kidney epidemiology, as well as statistical methods development. Bonnie is an epidemiologist by training with public health and research experience in Africa. She currently co-leads the NIEHS involvement in the Human, Hereditary, and Health in Africa, the H3 Africa Consortium, as well as an environmental health working group to expand and support environmental health research for African-based scientists. So welcome, Bonnie. Without much ado, I will hand over to you and I will stop sharing so that you can share your screen. Over to you, Claudia and Bonnie.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
kind introduction. And while Bonnie gets the slides up, I want to just say what a pleasure it is for both Bonnie and I to be joining you today and to be able to talk a little bit about the NIEHS and research opportunities that we have for African-based researchers. So on the next slide, today's presentation going to cover a couple of different things. First, I'm going to talk very briefly on the NIH and NIHS structure and mission, and a little bit about global environmental health at the NIEHS. And then I will turn it over to Bonnie, who will further discuss grant mechanisms, some collaborative programs in Africa, the human health exposure analysis resource, and some resources for grant writing. So on the next slide is way of introduction to National Institutes of Health, if people are not familiar with it. The NIH is the largest biomedical research agency in the world. It has an annual budget of around $40 billion. It's made up of 27 institutes and centers, each of which has its own research agenda, often focusing on particular disease or body systems. You may be familiar with the National Cancer Institute or the National Institute of Heart, Lung, and Blood. NIEHS has a broader mission where we focus on many different health outcomes in relation to exposure. The overall mission for the NIH is to seek fundamental knowledge about the nature and behavior of living systems and its application to enhance health, lengthen life, and reduce disease and disability. On the next slide, give you a little bit of information about the National Institutes of Environmental Health Sciences. It's the only NIH institute that is not found on Bethesda campus in Bethesda, Maryland. We're in Research Triangle Park in North Carolina, which is central to Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. The mission of the NIEHS is to discover how environment affects people in order to promote healthier lives. Our annual budget for 2020 is about $667 million. About $350 million of that goes to Extramural, which is the arm of the Institute that provides grant funding to researchers both within the United States as well as internationally. The NIEHS is structured along three major divisions. We have a division of intramural research, which focuses on, which is in-house research activities. As I've mentioned, we have the division of extramural research and training, which supports researchers. We also have the National Toxicology Program, which focuses on understanding and commenting on the toxicologies and the toxicological effects of chemicals in industry and in an environment. And we also have a clinical research program that's separate from the National Institutes of Health Clinical Research Program. Next slide. So NIEHS focuses its research energies both within the intramural labs as well as extramurally on a strategic plan that really outlines the research foci for the Institute and opportunities that we see in the environmental health sciences. If you go to the next slide, please. So the NIHS mission is, so to advance the NIHS mission, we have three main sort of pillars. One is advancing the environmental health sciences, and this really focuses on that fundamental research questions, of course, including clinical and observational research. Our, I would say our environmental epidemiology portfolio is quite broad, focusing on almost any health outcome in which there is the potential for environmental exposures affecting health. Of interest, I think, to this group is we do have a very robust program in global environmental health, which I will talk about, but we're also developing a robust presence in exposure science and really understanding that totality of the exposure and its impact on health, when the importance of the timing of exposure and what that means for disease and disability across all different life stages of an individual. A second component of our strategic plan is promoting translation of data to knowledge to action. So this is really trying to understand how we take those fundamental questions and move that to change policy, to improve public health, the questions of how to take big data and gathering big data and how we can use that to inform decisions. The third component is enhancing environmental health sciences through stewardships and support. And I want to emphasize here that in our strategic plan, there is specifically called out training on capacity building and global health, as you can read here on this slide, where we continue to support students and researchers from other countries and to understand those relationships, to collaborate, to share expertise and maximize resources to ensure the best in environmental health sciences. Next slide, please. And so as you're all aware, and I don't need to say to this audience, the environmental burden of disease impacts all of us. In the 2016 WHO report, they estimate that 23% of global deaths are linked to environment. That's about 12.6 million deaths. 8.2 deaths are caused by the environment due to non-communicable diseases, and most of these are attributed to air pollution. Healthier environments could prevent the deaths of 1.7 million children under the age of 5, and environmental risk to chemical exposures in air, water, pollution contributes to 100 different diseases and injuries. Next slide, please. At NIEHS, we have a global environmental health program that's really pillared on our international research activities in order to sort of communicate and coordinate all of the activities that we have in global environmental health. We have a global environmental health program which supports research, education, research translation, and training and capacity building in foreign countries. And built off of our global environmental health program, NIEHS is a WHO Collaborating Center that supports a number of different topics of international importance. And I think if you go to the next slide, they focus in 3 areas: research, translation, training, and capacity building. So again, as I've already mentioned, the research is focused on health effects and exposure, especially with emphasis on populations in lower and middle income countries, translating research findings to inform leaders, decision makers, and individuals can be used to improve health, and then a robust program in training and capacity to support international training programs, partner with international institutions, as well as support the global environmental health program to build in research capacity. Next slide. So I just wanted to show you, as of December of 2019, I believe we have about 134 projects across the globe. And as you can see, in Africa, we have a pretty good presence. In South Africa, we have between 5 and 9 different projects, and you can see other parts of the country where we have anywhere between 1 and 9 different research projects. So we do have a footprint in Africa. Next slide, please. And as I had mentioned earlier, our global environmental research focus areas that we're primarily emphasizing within our collaborating center is looking at the health effects of climate change, children's health, e-waste, cook stoves and household air pollution, oceans and human health, and training and capacity building. Next slide. And so with that really brief overview of NIEHS and our Global Environmental Health Program, I will turn it over to Bonnie Joubert, who will focus on different research opportunities in environmental health. And then at the end, we can open it up for questions. So thank you very much for your attention. And Bonnie, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Claudia. So I'm going to provide a brief overview of directions for how to submit an NIEHS grant application for specific research interests. So say you have a research idea and you want to submit an application to NIH or specifically NIEHS. So first, and some of you may be familiar with this, but there are many different types of NIH grant mechanisms. Some of them are shown here. And importantly, although there are many different mechanisms, not all are available across all institutes and under all circumstances. So it's really important to look at the specifics of each mechanism before you submit an application. And I'll be discussing some of these in this presentation. So first of all, just some language. There's solicited versus unsolicited or investigator-initiated applications that can be considered. Commonly, the solicited applications include request for applications or notices of special interest. And that's a way for specific institutes to announce to the community that we're in a particular research topic. Alternatively, if you have an idea, you can submit that under a parent announcement. And with each of these, you write and submit your grant application, and then it's assigned to scientific peer review, and then you receive that feedback through a summary statement. And there's some links shown across these slides that will provide more detailed information on all of the content that's covered. So one thing that we strongly recommend is to always feel free to contact your program administrator, also called program officer or program official. It's really helpful to contact, set up a phone call with these people so that before you submit an application and when you're considering the application, because they can give you a lot of guidance along the way. So I wanted to talk about some of the most common mechanisms that would be appropriate for this audience. So the NIH Research Project Grant Program, or R01, is the most common mechanism used across all NIH institutes. It aims to support discrete specific research project, and it's typically under $500K per year for 3 to 5 years. And there are links to the program announcements shown here. And a common question that may come up from this audience is whether or not you are eligible. So you can look in the funding opportunity announcement or hear the program announcement and see that there's a section that describes the eligibility of applications from institutions, organizations outside of the US, and also whether foreign components are eligible. And here for this mechanism, you see that all 3 of these are eligible. Another commonly used mechanism that NIEHS participates in is the Exploratory or Developmental Research Grant, or R21. And this supports new exploratory and developmental research projects that are in the early stages. So you are not required to have preliminary data to submit to this mechanism. It's a smaller award of $275,000 per year for up to 2 years. And there's also the small grant, the R03, and this is limited funds for a short period for a variety of projects that includes pilot or feasibility studies. It enables the generation of preliminary data and also secondary data analysis for existing data sets you may have access to. The funds for this are less, they're $50,000 per year for up to 2 years. And this mechanism and R21 are not used across all institutes, but they are used by NIEHS. And then shown here at the bottom is a link to see other funding opportunities or other grant mechanisms that may be worth considering. I wanted to mention a few specific programs to this audience that I think could be particularly relevant. So one is the Emerging Global Leader Award, or K43. This is a mentored research career developmental award. It provides research support and protected time for 3 to 5 years for an early career research scientist from an LMIC. The PI must hold a junior faculty position at an LMIC institution, and they are expected after the program completes to independently lead their own funded research career at the LMIC. The links are shown here, and some of the contacts, including the NIEHS contact, are shown at the bottom of the slide. There is also a new program, the African Postdoctoral Training Initiative. This enables fellows to train in a global health research area that's of priority for their home institution and country. It builds connections between partner organizations and African scientists and institutions, and there are specific research priority areas listed here. It is a collaborative funding from the African Academy of Sciences, NIH, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And unfortunately, currently the FOA has expired, but it's something to keep an eye on because it may be released again in the future, and more information and contacts are listed here. There are several other funding opportunities, and really the best way to keep an eye on these things is to go to the funding opportunities pages of the specific institutes. So Fogarty International Center and NIEHS, those links are listed there. And then another thing that may be helpful for this group is to sign up for the NIH Guide listserv. So this is an email group that you can sign up for, and you will get NIH Guide notices every Friday with the latest funding opportunity announcements from NIH. So I wanted to mention a few programs that NIEHS participates in that may be networking and collaboration opportunities. So one that I'm sure many of you are familiar with is the H3 Africa Consortium. So this is a consortium of researchers that are based in Africa that are evaluating the genomic susceptibility to non-communicable diseases. It consists of 13 research projects, 14 collaborative centers, 8 ethics grants, 3 African-based biorepositories, a bioinformatics network, and 4 global health bioinformatics training programs. This map shows the sites for the components of the H3 Africa Consortium, with more details listed on the right. And then this shows just the range of the disease areas that are evaluated across the consortium. And the link at the bottom, you can go and read more about the specific projects, the different PIs and staff involved. And then the NIH program director is Dr. Troyer, who's at NHGRI. And this is really a potential opportunity for looking at more gene-environment interactions in the future. Another NIH initiative that has come out more recently is called Harnessing Data Science for Health Discovery and Innovation in Africa, or ISEE Africa. And the goal of this is to leverage data science technologies and prior NIH investments to develop solutions to Africa's most pressing public health problems through a robust ecosystem of new partners from academic, government, and private sectors. So shown on the right is the structure of this consortium. It consists of research hubs, training, LC research, open data science platform and coordination center, and then symposia. And we had earlier last year symposia that included presentations about environmental health in the context of data science. And of note, the research hub applications are due February 8th for those who may be interested in working on those. And more information is there at the bottom, and there's multiple contacts across NIH. So Dr. Pavlich is one of the contacts. Another program that Claudia mentioned earlier that NIEHS is heavily involved in is the GeoHealth Hub. And this supports LMICs that will serve as regional hubs for collaborative research, data management, training, curriculum and outreach material development, and policy support. The program is focused on high priority local, national, and regional environmental and occupational health threats. And it enables a global network of hubs that can provide a platform for coordinated research in environmental and occupational health. So more information is available on this page. There's not a current solicitation out for this program at this time, but it's also another opportunity for engagement. So Claudia also mentioned the Human Health Exposure Analysis Resource, or HEAR program. So this is something quite different from the other topics discussed, but it's an existing NIH resource or program that aims to advance our understanding of how environment influences human health over a lifetime. And what this resource does is that it provides researchers access to a full range of environmental exposure assessment services in biological and environmental species.
Exactly.
And one thing that is really interesting about this program is that you can submit an application to enable environmental analyses in your existing project that has prior NIH funding. And if you have existing biological or environmental samples, you can send those to one of the HEAR labs to enable more measurements of biomarkers of environmental exposures. And more information is shown here at the bottom as well. I wanted to briefly mention some of the grant writing resources that are available. In the interest of time, I didn't go into a lot of detail on this, but there's a lot of information on the NIH web pages across different institutes that may be useful for this group. So I've provided links to those resources here. And then of course, here's our contact information, and you're welcome to reach out with specific questions, and we can try and direct you to the most appropriate person. And that's it.